Hey everyone, welcome to Ancient Architects. If you're new here, please subscribe for regular videos on ancient architecture and the latest archaeology news. Archaeological discoveries can be really exciting, and recently one claim has captured a lot of attention. The idea that there are huge, deep, man-made structures beneath the Pyramid of Khafre. I have to be honest. My first thought was, this sounds like absolute nonsense. The claims seemed impossible, almost insane. They say there are 5 unopened chambers inside the Khafre Pyramid that mirror the Great Pyramid's King's Chamber and Relieving Chamber setup. But then, it gets even more unbelievable. 8 vertically aligned cylinder-like structures going down through the limestone bedrock, each about 648 meters deep, with its own spiral staircase. At the bottom, these lead to 2 massive cubic chambers, each about 80 meters on a side. To put that in perspective, the Empire State Building is 443 meters tall, so these cylinders would be much taller than that. And the cubic chambers? Almost twice as tall as the Statue of Liberty. With all we know about history, ancient architecture, and engineering, my brain just instantly rejected this entire idea. But of course, that's not a scientific argument. Just my initial gut reaction. So before making a video, I spent the last week trying to understand the science behind this discovery. Is the method credible? Are the interpretations valid? In this video, I'll share my thoughts and outline a list of questions and concerns I want answered in the upcoming press conference and scientific paper. Let's start with the science. The technology behind this discovery is apparently called Synthetic Aperture Radar Doppler Tomography, or S for short. This is a real scientific technique, but it's rarely used to detect anything underground. That's not its main purpose. It's complicated, so I'll do my best to simplify. Synthetic Aperture Radar, or SAR, is a form of radar used to create 2D and 3D images of objects and landscapes. The radar equipment is mounted on planes or satellites. It sends out pulses of electromagnetic energy, then records how much energy is reflected back after hitting targets on Earth. From this data, you can detect things invisible to the naked eye or traditional photography. The data shows energy intensity, and after calibration, very detailed images can be created. This technique is used in archaeology, but mainly to detect shallow subsurface features in soil. It can't penetrate deep into solid rock. For example, one user on X, formerly Twitter, called the Daddy Shark, said the following: S operates via microwave reflections. It measures surface features, not deep underground chambers. Vibration-based imaging from orbit is science fiction. There's no realistic way to reconstruct kilometers-deep structures from pixel motion analysis alone. Even the most advanced S-vibration techniques only detect large-scale surface shifts and are used for monitoring earthquakes, not mapping underground cities. He also provided detailed math showing that microwave reflections can only penetrate about 1 meter into limestone bedrock. However, researcher Manu Saif, who has also been studying the science, argues the principles behind the new study shouldn't be dismissed. The scientists don't claim radar waves are penetrating kilometers of rock. Instead, they're detecting micro-motions at the surface caused by harmonically resonating voids below. So the satellite detects subtle vibrations on the surface above these voids, not the voids themselves. From these surface motions, the location and depth of voids can be reconstructed. According to Manu Saif, the scientific method theoretically works, but the exact reconstruction process is still unclear. The software that calibrates these surface micromotions into 2D and 3D depth profiles is proprietary and developed by Filippo Beyond, one of the lead scientists. Right now, we're relying on his word that the software works. That brings up an important question. Why should we accept it? That's a fair question. And I want to see comparative studies where this S-micromotion method detects known underground structures within bedrock. We need solid benchmarks. To be fair to Beyond, on his website harmonicsar.com, he presents a comparative study using his method on Italy's Gran Sasso mountain. There, his technique accurately located known tunnels and the Gran Sasso Physics Lab about 1.4 kilometers underground. I can't personally critique the science since it's beyond my expertise, but at this stage, I want Beyond and his team to do two things. Not for me, but for everyone interested in the Egyptian pyramids. First, please release full details of all the steps taken to convert open access S data into the 3D diagrams. The software is key to everything, and to gain acceptance by the wider scientific and archaeological community, there must be complete transparency. The findings should also be independently verified by scientists unaffiliated with the Khafre S project. Second, I want to see more comparative studies. For example, scan another patch of limestone bedrock in northern Egypt, ideally near Giza, but without any known archaeological features. This would show us how a normal patch of limestone bedrock looks under your method. More comparisons mean more trust. I want to see every stage, raw data, calibrated data, 3D models, and interpretations, with full transparency about how the method works. That's the science side. If all that happens, I can accept it. Science makes breakthroughs all the time. I'm definitely not in a position to say what can or can't be done. As I said, it's well beyond my expertise. From this point on, I'll assume good faith that this is the data the team received. But my next concerns are all about the interpretations of the data. How do you go from this fuzzy micro-motion data to these huge cylinders and chambers? What worries me most is that fuzzy surface data somehow becomes 8 giant cylinders with spiral staircases taller than the Empire State Building, leading to cube-like chambers twice as big as the Statue of Liberty. A large part of these structures would be below the water table, not just now, but throughout history, including the African humid period. Humans do build cylinder structures in bedrock, wells, but those are to reach groundwater. They don't go hundreds of meters deeper. It simply doesn't make sense. Why would any civilization, modern people, ancient Egyptians, mythical Atlanteans, or a lost civilization build a city partly underwater in fractured, faulted, poor-quality limestone bedrock? If they were smart enough to build such a city, they wouldn't place it right next to the Nile River. They'd build it several kilometers into the desert. The team talks about discovering a lost city and a lost hall of records, claiming these structures are all man-made. But this makes no sense, hydrologically, geologically, historically, or engineering-wise. We know humans are practical. The enormous effort to build these massive structures, with much of them underwater, is illogical. And where did all the excavated rock go? We're talking about volumes equal to at least 10 Empire State Buildings. That much rubble would have to be somewhere, but it's not used for the pyramids. The quarries for pyramid stones are well documented, so I believe wholeheartedly the interpretation is wrong. I can't see any realistic scenario where these are man-made megastructures. Again, this is my opinion. I'm not an expert. Given everything, there are only two reasonable ways to interpret the data. Either it's noise or artifacts from the scan, or it's natural geological features. The scientists involved, as experts, must have considered every alternative before concluding these are man-made. So I have more questions for the team, and I'm making these public for transparency. First, if you've detected man-made structures extending hundreds of meters into the bedrock beneath Khafre's pyramid, you must have a very clear and detailed understanding of the local geology. This is crucial because to claim these are man-made, you have to convincingly rule out natural explanations. We know the Giza limestone is riddled with faults, fissures, and caves, all natural features. For instance, the Tomb of the Birds area is known for vast natural cave networks, and these may well extend beneath Khafre's pyramid. There are also mineralized iron veins running near and beneath the pyramid, multiple bedding planes in the limestone with lateral changes in thickness, and groundwater movement that has weathered the rock over time. So, can the scientists explain why these man-made features can't actually be natural voids? Things like caves, faults, fissures, and weathered bedding planes can all look quite regular and linear because they follow natural zones of weakness. Tectonic faults and fissures tend to be relatively straight, as do bedding planes. Second, why haven't you been able to identify well-known internal features of the Khafre Pyramid in your calibrated data? For example, the so-called Beloin chamber, the lower chamber, the horizontal passageway, and the two descending passages. These are documented parts of the pyramid's interior. If you have found them, we'd like to see how they appear in your raw data. Showing known structures in your data is a basic minimum. On your Facebook page, you say the horizontal passage and the Beloin chamber are embedded in a limestone slab that absorbs the signal. But that's not exactly accurate. These features are carved directly into the natural limestone bedrock. Third, the Khafre Pyramid was scanned using muon tomography back in the 1960s, focusing on the central cone region. So why don't the chambers and their associated relieving chambers appear in that old data? The scientists back then ensured strict controls and verified their method's effectiveness. If those chambers exist, they should have been detected. Fourth, if we assume the 1960s muon scans were flawed, I'm aware the Khafre Pyramid is currently being scanned again by the Scan Pyramids Project, the same team that successfully identified two voids inside the Great Pyramid, with results verified by physical exploration inside the North Ace corridor. Are you coordinating with the Scan Pyramids team to compare data sets? This kind of collaboration could help confirm or refute these findings. Fifth, ground-penetrating radar was used in the 1970s from inside the Beloin chamber to study beneath the pyramid. Acoustic soundings discovered two voids, likely natural, one about 21 meters below ground and another at 33 meters. This data was published and is available. So where are these shallow voids in your data? If your method can detect hundreds of meters underground, these relatively shallow cavities should be clearly visible. Furthermore, can you explain why the 1970s team did not detect any sign of giant cylinders or spiral staircases? Sixth, we know multiple voids and cavities exist in all Egyptian pyramids, including the Great Pyramid. The core structures aren't perfectly built. The limestone blocks are often roughly cut and placed, with millimeter precision absent. Much of the stone can be described as rubble. There are also sand-filled voids and empty spaces within the cores. So, how do the researchers differentiate between these constructional voids inside the core masonry and the so-called unopened chambers they claim to have found? All these questions and concerns I'm outlining here are fair and absolutely necessary. To make such extraordinary claims about the world's most iconic archaeological site requires extraordinary evidence. The team needs to silence the doubters, myself included. You don't do that by banning comments on your Facebook page after I asked these very questions last weekend. Trust me, nobody wants this discovery to be real more than me. If it's true, it would be the greatest archaeological discovery in human history. But right now, we need absolute transparency about the methods used, both regarding how the software actually works and how you interpreted the data. This transparency is especially crucial because the team is now scanning the entire Giza plateau. They released a diagram in their press release that shows a south to north view of Giza, and when you look at it, all these features seem to follow the natural sloping bedding planes of the limestone there. This limestone has been heavily weathered for millions of years and is riddled with natural caves, fissures, and faults. To me, this new image looks much more like geology than man-made structures. When looking at these scans of Giza, you see many vertical features, which to me clearly look like noise or artifacts from the scanning process. In my opinion, these are natural features and this is scan noise. So could the giant cylinders below Khafre's pyramid just be zoomed-in views of this vertical noise? Possibly. At this point, I honestly don't know. I have to be honest and say that while the science behind the method might be valid, and I'm not qualified to question that, I think the interpretation is most likely incorrect. I believe what we're seeing is either noise or natural geological formations. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ancient Architects. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. To wrap this up, I want to emphasize that discoveries like this, if true, would be absolutely groundbreaking. But extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. The burden of proof lies with the researchers, and until they provide full transparency, data sharing, and independent verification, healthy skepticism is the right approach. We need to see all the raw data, detailed methodology, and software workings laid out clearly. Comparative studies scanning similar geological formations without archaeological remains would also be incredibly valuable to distinguish natural geology from man-made features. Also, coordination with established projects like scan pyramids could help validate or challenge these results, given their successful detection of voids in the Great Pyramid. Moreover, questions about why established methods from the past, muon tomography from the 1960s, acoustic soundings from the 1970s, and ground-penetrating radar didn't detect these massive structures need to be answered. The new claims must explain these inconsistencies. We must also account for the practicalities. Where did the huge amount of excavated rock go? Why build such enormous, deep chambers partially underwater in fractured limestone? History and engineering don't support such decisions. I remain very curious to see how this story develops and hope the team will respond openly to these questions. Archaeology thrives on transparency, replication, and peer review. That's how we separate fact from fiction. Thank you all for spending your time with Ancient Architects. If you like this video, please subscribe, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing from you. Until next time, keep exploring the mysteries of the ancient world.